So we're starting the bottom of Lamed Beis Amud Aleph in Maseches Beitsa, Tana Rabbanan. Go ahead.
Sorry. Tana Rabbanan was told, ein Poskim Israel. You cannot call out a vessel. Ein Oisin Alfusin Charonios Bianto. You're not allowed to make flat plates from rural areas.
No, the flat plates that are normally made there. But that's not the point. These are flat plates and you might want to make. You cannot do that on Yom Tov. Who says that?
That's a Tanakama.
Right.
Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Matir Ba'alfisin Charonios. Rishon Gamliel allows the United to make this flat plates on Yom Tov.
And why do you think he does that?
Because he holds it's not a key.
Correct. So who do you think he's holding, like from the Tanaim that we've seen before? Right. Just like it's not Makabel Tuma, because it's not a kli, because it doesn't have a receptacle, therefore that he can do it on Yom Tov. Okay. So essentially that's the way we were learning our Mishnah before.
Correct.
That our Mishnah would hold that if you don't have a receptacle, it's not a kli, and therefore it would be mutter. Okay, weiter.
What are flat plates?
We said ilfos means a plate, so charonios, we're saying what does that word add to the plate? Yeah, we have plates that are charonios, that are somehow connected to charonios. That means they're flat plates, but why do we call flat plates plates that are charonios? That's the Gemora's question.
Yeah. Okay, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, said Rabbi Yehudias, Aronius, Amar Aronius, Amar Abaya, Tsai Chakliyasa. Tsai means, Chakliyasa means farmers.
Yeah, like rural, like out in the villages.
What does Tsai mean?
I think there are plates. It's basically what Rashi had explained before. There are people who live in cities, but they're not big metropolises, they're just regular small towns, and they're not makpid on having fancy dishes, etc. Therefore they're happy as soon as the clay gets flattened and spread out, they don't need it to have a receptacle or even a rim or anything. Okay, weiter.
So this you know I make charcoal on Yom Tov.
So what is the Gemora doing now?
Bring a new section.
New section. We're going back to the Mishnah. We're taking another little quote from the Mishnah, another halacha from the Mishnah, and trying to explain it more thoroughly, because that's what the Gemora does. It takes parts of the Mishnah and explains it more thoroughly. So you can't make charcoal. Why can't you make charcoal? What did Rashi say in the Mishnah?
Because
What did Rashi say in the Mishnah?
Because they are considered a vessel.
That they are also considered a vessel. Therefore, Shalom Aleichem.
They become purified.
No, that's who people who use it. He's explaining who uses it.
Did you get the 3 verse now? Did you get the number 3? Yeah.
Only 6-7 minutes to wait.
Oh.
You guys have really...
Informed.
Yesterday you paid your dues and today it paid off. You guys got good service today.
Yeah.
So, Rashi in the Mishnah said the reason we're not allowed to make charcoal is what?
It's a kli.
Yeah, and that is a bit of a chiddush to call charcoal a kli.
Also because you need to do it for tikkun, right? With the sira that you allow in it, you're doing a tikkun.
Well, if you're making something, that is a tikkun. Once you call it a kli, then you can say you were making the kli, or you're making a tikkun to the kli. The first step is the chiddush to call it a kli.
What's the key? The wick or the charcoal?
Oh, charcoal, you're saying pieces of charcoal.
So how can you take on charcoal? What does he mean by it?
Well, how do you make charcoal?
Make
Right.
charcoal. Is that
How do you do it? How do you do it? You must be take wood, like very strong wood. You put it on a fire, you make it char, little piece of, then you cut it into sizes or whatever.
Is that called a tikkun? Is that fixing it?
It's making a kli. Rashi. Once you agree on the first step, which Rashi is saying is the pshat in our Mishnah, that the Mishnah is notifying you that it is a kli, and that's why it's usher to do it, to make it on your.
Like an instrument. Thing.
We would have thought it has to be a regular implement, like a stethoscope
That has a use.
or a scalpel.
Yeah.
The answer is this has a use. This object has a use. So Rashi says the Mishnah is widening the definition of a kli. That's, in my opinion, what Rashi is emphasizing in his explanation of the Mishnah. Now, once you call it a kli, then obviously you can't do it on Yom Tov. And then you can start to talk about its problem of making a kli, or even making a tikkun to the kli. Those are all just small details once you've accepted the major chiddush that it's called a kli.
And this is called a kli.
That's right, charcoal. Have you ever had charcoal? Do you ever make a barbecue with a piece of charcoal? You hold a piece of charcoal in your hand. You think you're holding a kli in your hand? Well, no, let's say it's not yet lit. Right? Like that's how you start a barbecue. You take it and then you even it out, or I think you make a pile first, and then when it gets really hot, then you even it out. Whatever. So you know, I'm sure we've all had that wonderful experience of holding a piece of charcoal in our hands. It's not lit, and most of us would not have thought we're holding a kli in our hands, right? We would not have called it a utensil. Rashi's calling it a utensil, and Rashi says that's the pshat in our Mishnah. That's why you can't do it.
Yeah.
It becomes just like the first halacha then, in that respect. And then apparently, I would say each of these three halachas in the Mishnah is going in ascending order of chiddush. You can't take a piece of clay and put an indent in it, because that's making it clean. Well, yes, that's a chiddush because it didn't get into the kiln yet. And yes, that's a chiddush that you need to have a receptacle like the second version, but I understand that a little bit better. That I did make a kli. I did make some kind of a kli. Later, Abaye says, well, what can you use it for? Oh, you can put little things in it. Fine. But I understand that much better than to call charcoal a kli. But that's the second. Yes, even that's called a kli, and therefore you can't do that, and therefore you can't make tikkunim to either. And then Rashi throws in, you also can't singe a wick, because that's also making charcoal. It's making a kind of a tikkun. So Rashi learns both things are included, but the major shot, I think, is making charcoal, because we see the Gemora is going to talk about that aspect, real charcoal. And then the third chiddush is even taking wicks and cutting them down to size is also kind of making a kli, making a tikkun to a kli. Anyhow, okay, so we're going on the second chiddush, not to make pachamim. Okay, and the reason the Mishnah said it was Asur, Rashi learns, is because it's making a kli.
Sorry, something really puzzling me. I think I asked you this question before. If you blacken the wick, or Shabbos, and it's done on Yom Tov, right? In other words, it's covered by the Chatziros,
the Eruv Tavshin.
The Eruv Tavshin, right? Which covers, I think, you can. Two things. Can you put it out? And secondly, you're making charcoal on, which is a kli.
I would say, according to this Rashi, you're not allowed to do it. The whole chiddush of Erev Tavshilin is that anything I can do on Yom Tov, I can now do it for Shabbos.
Right.
But if I can't do it on Yom Tov, I don't, because I made an Erev Tavshilin, now I can do things that are Asr on Yom Tov. No. Erev Tavshilin is the chiddush that even things like, let's say, normal cooking that I'm allowed to do on Yom Tov, but I'm not allowed to do it on Yom Tov for the next day. Let's say there's a day like Yom Tov comes on a Wednesday, and I know there's a lot of my relatives are coming, they're in town, they're going to visit me tomorrow. So I figure I'll cook an extra few steaks today for my relatives who are coming tomorrow. I'm anyways cooking up some steaks for Yom Tov. I'll put a few extra on the burner for Yom Tov, for tomorrow, for after Yom Tov. That's Asr.
This is late in the day, right?
Well, no, that's when it's really Asr, because then there aren't even ability to have orchim. But basically, if my kavanah is to cook from Yom Tov till the next day, which is Chol, it's Asr. It's Asr to have kavanah to cook from Yom Tov to Chol, to prepare on Yom Tov for the next day.
Right.
So it should be Asr to cook from Yom Tov to Shabbos, theoretically.
Right.
But with an Erev Tavshilin, it becomes mutter.
Right.
For example, this.
But only something that's mutter on Yom Tov, but just the only problem is I'm not allowed to do it for the next day. Erev Tavshilin says it's not like you're really doing it for the next day because you really already started your Tavshil the day before.
It's like
You can't take something that's Asr and say, I made an Erev Tavshilin, I'm going to do it. No. So if we're learning here it's Asr to singe a wick, it'd be Asr to do that on Yom Tov even with an Erev Tavshilin. The only thing you're allowed to do is light a candle. But to singe the wick, it looks like from here, Rashi in the Mishnah makes it sound like that's part of Ein Osim Pachamim. I don't know if that's the final halacha. Charcoal.
Pechamim is charcoal.
A pecham is like a coal, is like a piece of charcoal. So I'm not saying, Rashi already says that it's an extra pshat. Right? If you look at the Rashi on Ein Osim Pachamim, he starts out talking about real pachamim, and tells you that's the chiddush of the Mishnah, that it's really telling you those are called a utensil, and that's why you can't do it. And then he goes on to talk about even singeing a wick.
You couldn't put it out anyway on Yom Tov, right?
Huh?
You couldn't put it out on Yom Tov anyway, right?
Well, that's the point. The point is, apparently, yes, I hear what you're saying, which we're not really allowed to put out a fire unless there's special cases like extra smoke or extra thing. But yeah, that's a good question. Why would you even have the havamina of doing it? That's one of the things that's asur because it's a malacha that I'm doing kibui. But maybe there's a way of doing it which wouldn't make kibui. Which maybe I let it burn. Maybe I let it smolder on its own. Maybe there's a way of making pachamim that I put it in the fire and then I just take it out and let it smolder on its own. Maybe I don't have to put out a fire. It's like people who smoke a cigarette. What do they do when they want to put it out? They just stand it on its edge and it goes out by itself. So maybe there's a way of making pachamim that you put it in the fire, a big log in the fire, and then when it gets to the stage of being pachamim, you take it out and it smolders on its own. Maybe you don't have to put it out to make pachamim. Maybe it goes out.
And if you light a candle, it's going to stay lit.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Now,
So,
some people do, like on gas stoves. They put boiling water on it and wait for the water to boil over. And that's what I intend to, right? You still intend to put the fire out that way. I'm not sure if you're allowed to do that.
that's indirect. That's indirect. Apparently, there are some who hold that that's mutter. But and also probably in those cases you need the water to boil, and that you're just doing it in such a way that when the water does boil, it'll also go overflow and put the fire out. Anyhow, okay, we're getting a bit off topic. So now singeing a wick, maybe there's a way of singeing it without lighting it and putting it out. Again, just holding it sort of, like when you roast marshmallows. Put it near and you try to make sure it doesn't catch on fire and it starts to get brown.
It does catch fire, that's great, that's the great stuff.
You like those?
Oh, those are great.
Oh no, I was very careful to try to
That's very hard not to get burnt.
just make it a bit brownish, but it wasn't always successful. Now I know who to do it with, because if I make a mistake and I give it to you, I can give it to you, you'll be happy.
Oh, yeah.
It's like my wife said she had a friend, they were always good together because one always burnt the food and one always undercooked the food, and when they cooked together it came out okay. Alright, so let's just get back to the Gemora now. The Gemora is going to look at this part of the Mishnah that you're not allowed to make charcoal. And the reason we know Rashi told us in the Mishnah is because it's called making a kli. I think the Gemora is going to end up saying, but why do you need to even talk about that
obvious. Shit, it's obvious.
It's obvious because of what? Because of the next question, which it says right after Pshita. It's not a regular Pshita. It's not regular because... Normally Pshita means I would have understood that on my own. But it doesn't mean the halacha of the Mishnah, that this is called making a kli. That's not necessarily Pshita. Like we said before, to us it's a big Kiddush to call a charcoal a utensil. But what's Pshita is that the Mishnah says it's usher to do it. That is Pashut. I should know that on my own that it's usher to do it. Not because it's a kli, but because of another reason. Because of the following reason that what? L'mai chazi. That's the reason why it's pshita that it should have been usher. What do you understand from that?
It's mutter.
Yeah, usually we talk about it in terms of muksa, but here that doesn't mean because of muksa. Let's see the Gemora. There's no, just 1 second, there's no Gemora on that. I think the Gemora is hinting to the fact that, from the answer I see the Gemora gives, I think the Gemora at this point is saying, what could you possibly use it for? Right?
Yeah. I'm
basically putting something in the fire. How do we make pechamim? We said a moment ago, I take a big log and put it in the fire. At a certain point I take it out so it turns into charcoal instead of just a regular fire, right?
Correct.
But what am I actually doing? I'm burning a log. Now, what's the normal heter to put things in a fire on Yom Tov? Ochel nefesh. Right? Ochel nefesh, that by putting this log in the fire I can cook more food, or I can heat myself up, or whatever the need is. Right?
Passed away and all the dad passed away.
So I think that what the Gemora is getting at is, why do I need to be told in the Mishnah that making charcoal is like making a kli, and that's why it's usher? I would know anyways it's usher, because what would be the heter putting the log in the fire in the first place?
For Ochel Nefesh.
Ochel Nefesh. Now, is this guy doing it for Ochel Nefesh? Why does he want to make pachamim?
For heat.
No, you don't need to make pachamim for that. You can just leave a log in the fire. You don't have to take it out and make pachamim for that. You know what the Gemora is assuming? That who needs to make pachamim? People who are craftsmen. If you look in Rashi in the Mishnah, let's go back to that Rashi in the Mishnah.
So he finds gold.
Rashi says in the Mishnah, read it again. Why can't we make pachamim? They are also considered making kli. Meaning Rashi is notifying us that that's a chiddush, that not only a regular kli is asa, but this is also considered making a kli. Okay, but what is it a kli for?
It's Sorfei Zahav, it's purifying gold.
Sorfei Zahav. What's Sorfei?
Sorfei means purify.
No, B'nai Yisrael. What's B'nai Yisrael?
Children.
Children of. What's Kivrei Tzadikim?
Graves.
Graves of Tzadikim. What's Sifrei Kabbalah?
Books of Kabbalah.
Books of. Okay, you hear what I'm driving at?
Yeah.
This word is a plural word.
Smicha.
It's a plural word, and you have to say whatever you're talking about, that of. So please try to do that. What are tzorfei zahav?
Purifications.
No, I don't hear a plural. What plural? People.
People.
Like Bnei Israel, our children, our people.
Goldsmiths.
Yeah, people who do purify zahav.
People who purify gold.
That's right. Like you said, goldsmiths. But it's talking about people who wield the trade, people who do the trade, that trade, that craft called tzorfei zahav. Okay.
People
Who craft gold. People who craft gold, they have to purify it and mold it and do all sorts of other things, right? That's called tzorfei zahav. Okay? So what did Rashi just inform me? Let's just go through the chidushim Rashi just informed me of. Coal is also called a kli.
Yes.
And that's why it's usher to make it on
Yom Tov.
Yom Tov. What's it a kli for? Who uses it as a kli?
People who purify gold.
That's right. Now, let's see if there's another thing here in Rashi. Okay, let's just take that part of Rashi. So, when I get to the Gemora, I have to use this Rashi. Rashi's saying, who uses this?
People who purify.
The craftsmen who want to make gold objects, right? Gold vessels and gold jewelry or whatever, right?
Yes.
Now, the Mishnah says, so don't make that on Yom Tov. Says the Gemora, why would I think it's mutter? The only reason I'm allowed to put something in a fire normally is
Was to
Ochel Nefesh. And here I'm being told, don't do something that ends up being a kli for the tzorfei zahav.
Yes.
Is tzorfei zahav Ochel Nefesh?
No.
To take gold and make it into a kli, to make it into pure gold or whatever, and craft it, is that Ochel Nefesh?
Of the Chol.
Huh?
Of the Chol.
No, it's worse than Udidachol. It's like it's a craft that probably has a lot of malachas involved in that craft. Making a kli and cooking up gold to purify it is a real malachas. You're cooking gold. It gets probably big bubbles like regular soup, like heat up soup. That's called cooking, right? So when you heat up the gold to the point where it starts to bubble, and even before bubbling, I think it's called cooking. At 110 or something, or even, I don't know. It's called cooking even at a lower temperature than the big bubbles. So if I ask you why it's usher to make pechamim, what would you tell me? First thing Rashi told me was, you know why? Because you're making a kli like everything else in the Mishnah. You're not allowed to make a kli. Says the Gemora, why should you have to come on to that reasoning? There's a much bigger reason why it's usher. Because the only heter to normally put something in a fire is ochel nefesh. And what? Is this ochel nefesh?
Nope.
Making pechamim for the guy who's going to craft the gold, is that ochel nefesh?
No.
No. I'm doing a malacha, putting a log in a fire for something that has nothing to do with Yom Tov. So that's a malacha mamish. I just cooked up a log for some guy, either tomorrow or even today, who's going to do his craft. So I don't need to tell you, you know why it's usher to make pechamim? Because you make a kli. Tell me a bigger reason. Because you're doing something that's mamish, a malacha that's usher on Yom Tov. You're cooking up a log, and there's no ochel nefesh here. Right? Or worse, it's for tomorrow. Right? Like we said before, you're not allowed to do a malacha today for tomorrow. So there's much bigger reasons. So therefore, I think this lamai chazi is not like the normal. Normally, we've seen the Gemora always say lamai chazi to say the thing is muksa or whatever. There's no real usage for it. But here it's saying there's no real Yom Tov usage for it. That's what it means. So therefore, I have a more basic reason why it should be usher, not the reason that's in this Mishnah. This Mishnah all has to do with making a kli. That's what Rashi said. You know why it's usher? Because you're making a kli. That's what the subject of this Mishnah is, not to make kelim on Yom Tov. The Gemora is saying, Pshita, that of course you can't make pachamim. Forget about the thing about making kalim. I have a bigger reason. L'may chazi, what's it good for? It's only going to be good for, Rashi said, sorfei zah. And they're going to use it either tomorrow or some other thing, and therefore there's no heter to do it. So forget about the fact that you made it clean. That's like small fry. It's a small reason comparatively. Say the bigger reason. The bigger reason is because asur to do a malacha that you have no usage for today, only for tomorrow. So that's what the Gemara's kasha is, l'may chazi, not the normal l'may chazi and its muksa. L'may chazi means, how could you have any heter to do it? Forget about the fact that you made it clean. So why put it in a Mishnah that it's going to end up being like Rashi said, it's asur because it makes it clean? Say it's asur because you're doing a huge malacha.
Correct.
It's a much bigger problem. So the Gemora answers. Tani Rabbi Chia. You're right, it is pretty pshita, but it's only necessary to tell me for the reason of kli, where there is a Yom Tov usage, it's only necessary to tell me Le'olairin. For people who wanted to take the charcoal and give it over to
Bathhouse attendants.
the bathhouse attendants, because they are going to be heating up water for baths, which ostensibly it's mutter to take a hot bath on Yom Tov.
Wait, is this word
Le means for.
Yeah.
Olairin are the last two letters are just making a plural, so there's some word olair. Olair must mean a bathhouse attendant. Not in English, but in Aramaic.
Sounds French.
Yes, it does sound French, but I don't believe it's a French word. I believe it's an Aramaic word. The only one who uses French in the Gemora is Rashi. When he sometimes wants to let you know what a word means, he'll use Old French. Let's see the Rashi. Le'olairin.
Shall I read it? Le'olairin. Machme chamrin.
Mechame chamin. You have another chance to redeem yourself here and translate. This is like Sor Fezav. Mechame chamin.
People who heat up water.
Exactly. So that's who these Olairin people are. And you want to give it to them. People who heat up water. What do people normally heat up water for? Merchatzos. Bathhouses. Okay, so heating up water and heating up bathhouses, that's something you might have wanted to do on Yom Tov, right? And therefore it's better, there's more of a havamina that it would be mutter to make pachamim to give over to those people, and because at least it's a sort of Yom Tov, so that's how Rashi finishes. The Kiddush then is... You're right. And that's where you see the kasha was, because you're doing it not for Tzorach Yom Tov. So the answer was we're dealing with a case where they are going to give it to someone for Tzorach Yom Tov. And that's why I couldn't have said it's usher because of cooking the wood, because for heating up water, it's a mutter on Yom Tov. So what did the Mishnah have to say? Why is it usher? For a smaller reason, for the reason of what Rashi said in the Mishnah. Because you're what? Beginning of the Rashi in the Mishnah. Making it clean. Right? And those are the three cases in this Mishnah. You're not allowed to do the thing with the clay, you're not allowed to do it with the charcoal, to do with the wick, because they all have to do with making it clear, making a tikkun for the kli. So the Gemora kasha was, don't talk about that reason, talk about the bigger reason. You're doing a malacha for not Tzorach Yom Tov. This is where I see from this Rashi, you work your way backwards to the kasha was, you're doing it not Tzorach Yom Tov. So Rashi says in the answer, and now we're talking about a case which is Tzorach Yom Tov, and that's the Kiddush, that even though you're doing it Tzorach Yom Tov now, you're making pachamim to give to the people who heat up water, which is a Tzorach Yom Tov. But that's the pshat in the Mishnah, that even though it's a Tzorach Yom Tov, so I can't tell you it's usher because it's not Tzorach Yom Tov, it is a Tzorach Yom Tov. So why is it usher? Because you are making a kli. Now the Gemora asks a new question. Okay, so there's two words we didn't read, which should really go together with the most from the alarm. You wanted to give it to these bathhouse attendants or people who heat up water. Libo bayom. Now that phrase, bo bayom, we've had a few times.
On that day.
That same day. So libo bayom means for that same day. That's also an indication of what Rashi was hinting at, that the kasha was you're doing it for the next day. And of course it's us. The answer is no, we're doing it for today. The bathhouse attendants for today, for this very same day. So therefore it should have been, like Rashi said, mutter because of tzorach yom tov. On that we're saying it's usher because it's making a kli. So now the Gemora says, is it really mutter to heat up water for a bath on that same day, meaning for Yom Tov itself? Are you allowed to really have the bathhouse attendants heat up water on Yom Tov for the same day, which we're thinking now it was? But now the Gemora is going to bring up something which is like a new chiddush that we hadn't really thought of apparently. Okay, and now, no, we have to actually see Rashi. Because Rashi explains the kasha, and then the next thing is going to be the teretz. So let's see the Rashi. Mi shari, is it really mutter? You just made it sound like it's mutter, and the only isser is making a kli. Well, is it really mutter to heat up water on that same day? Mi shari, what? Lehachem.
To heat up water.
To heat up water. Is it really mutter? Maybe you're right, Doraisa, it's mutter to heat up water for the sake of some need of Yom Tov. But Rashi says, let's not forget. The Gemora is saying, let's not forget what we learned in Masechah Shabbos, right? Hu chamu.
They heated up on it.
No, they were heated. It's a plural passive. They were heated. You know what the they are?
Chocolate.
No. He's quoting a Gemora on Shabbos about how they made a gezerah not to heat up water.
They were heated means the water.
The water. And why is it plural?
Because
mine is plural. Right? So you get verbs that are plural, and you just have to remember we're talking about water. So in English we don't really think of it that way. The water is plural. But in Hebrew, they go down to the little molecules, H2O. So there's plural in there. Okay? So Rashi is supposedly telling us that in Masechah Shabbos it says what?
They were heated up.
They made a gezerah.
Not to heat up water.
The Chachamim made a gezerah not to heat up water, but of course on Shabbos anyways you can't heat up water. So Rashi says, what was the gezerah really? That even
if they were heated,
even if the waters were heated, heated when?
On Yom Tov.
No, read it again. Afilu. Cold too. Even if the waters had been heated up, mi ba'od. Now, Rashi's quoting a Gemora in which Masechta?
Shabbos.
So you think it's an affair for you to get tzedakah, because your mind completely wasn't able to concentrate while you gave it. You only give it if you're not going to stop learning. If you can't concentrate while you're doing it, then you shouldn't give it. You're putter. Okay, let's try it again. Let's step one. Step one, Rashi says there's a gezerah.
To heat up.
The Chachamim made a gezerah to aser.
Heating up water.
Right, and he starts out by talking about it here on Yom Tov, right?
Yeah.
Even for washing. But where did he find that gezerah?
Masechah Shabbos.
In Masechah Shabbos. So what he's about to say is from which Masechta?
Masechah Shabbos.
Masechah Shabbos. So read it as if you're talking about Shabbos and not Yom Tov. We're going to apply it here back to Yom Tov eventually. But right now, forget about Yom Tov, go into Masechah Shabbos, and imagine you're reading something about Shabbos now.
Then we'll heat it on Erev Shabbos.
That's right. And that's what Rashi's trying to show you. That even if waters had been heated Erev Shabbos. So that should make it mutter to use on Shabbos, just like I cook cholent on Erev Shabbos and I eat it on Shabbos. So what's wrong if I cook up water on Erev Shabbos? I should be able to take a bath on Shabbos. Rashi says no, they made a gezerah to make that usur. Even that case, where there was no malacha done, is usur to use that hot water for a bath on Shabbos.
Yeah.
So what did Rashi just show me? Even where no Isser was really done,
Still awesome.
it was all no malachas was done whatsoever, it's still usher to take a bath with that hot water on Shabbos. Okay, just a second. The kol shekain lehachem chamin and kol shekain to heat up water in a bathhouse is going to be asur lo hutar me'olam, was never permitted. Okay, obviously he's talking about Shabbos, but it means even on Yom Tov, where we have this case now, if I heat it up on Yom Tov, did I do a real malacha? No, because it's mutter, it's a part of Ochel Nefesh. So Rashi's saying that's what the Gemora means. Just like over there on Shabbos. You can't take a bath in a bathhouse with hot water, even if it was really heated on Erev Shabbos, where there was no malacha done, it's still the Chazal were against it. So certainly here, where you're doing it on Yom Tov, even though there's no malacha involved, we have the same problem. In other words, there's a gezerah. Rashi's learning that's the pshat in our Gemora. Is it really permissible to heat up water for hot baths on Yom Tov? No. Rashi says the meaning of that Gemora is that there's a standing gezerah that the Rabbanan instituted that makes it asur to take a hot bath on Yom Tov. Right? Not because there's a malacha involved. Just like over there, not because there's a malacha involved, even if there's no malacha involved. They do not want you doing it. Now, as far as I remember, the Gemora says because there were unscrupulous bathhouse attendants who would say to people, come and take a bath in my bathhouse, and of course you'll pay me tomorrow, right? But and I have perfectly hot water here, and it was heated up on Erev Shabbos. Are you allowed to go to that bathhouse?
No.
No. Why? Because Chazal were worried that he may have actually done it on Shabbos. Right? You can't know every guy that he's really above board. Apparently, we know that Chazal don't just suspect people doing averas. So there was an incident, right? Just like there's an issur of wearing spiked shoes on Shabbos. You ever hear of that, gezerah?
Yeah, because in the tunnels, when the Romans were raiding, then people trampled each other to death.
Right. There was one incident, when everyone was hiding in the cave to hide from the Romans, and people got scared and started running out, and they trampled each other with these spiked shoes that they used to wear in their day, and people got killed. So Chazal said, from now on, you can't wear any spiked shoes on Shabbos. Even if it has nothing to do with Romans and trampling. Just don't, it happened once, a bad thing, we don't want to ever do it again. Okay? Just like I heard that's the same reason why we don't have knives on the table when we bench. You're supposed to take all the knives off the table when you bench. Why? Because there was once an incident where someone got so involved in grieving over Yerushalyim when he said when he said the part about benching that talks about Yerushalyim, he got so aggrieved he stabbed himself with the knife that was on the table. So I said, oh my gosh, something bad happened with the knife during benching. From now on, no one can bench with a knife on the table. In a similar way, probably there was an incident. No, listen to what I'm saying first. There was an incident where they caught bathhouse attendants heating up water on Shabbos and telling people they had done it before. So therefore they stepped in and they made a gezerah. From now on, no one can wash themselves with hot water on Shabbos. And apparently Rashi learns from our Gemora that it's even applicable to Yom Tov. Shabbos and Yom Tov go together.
No doubt.
Turn off the camera, please.
We learned that it's Ochel Nefesh. To light a fire and you want to heat up.
Okay, here we are. The Gemora had asked a kasha, why did the Mishnah say it's usher to make charcoal? Because it makes a kli. It's a more basic reason that it's used by people who are goldsmiths, and therefore it's not even a need of Yom Tov. Of course you can't do it. On that, the Gemara says no. Maybe it's talking about a person who would want to give it to a bathhouse attendant, where really big fires have to heat up huge amounts of water, and that's where we would theoretically need charcoal for Yom Tov itself. And that's what the Mishnah is saying. I know you'd want to do that, but you can't because it's called making a kli. Frak the Gemara, how could you even think that? Because that's called making it for a bathhouse is like making it for something anyways that's usher.
Isn't someone making for a goldsmith?
Huh?
Isn't someone making for bathhouse? Is not someone making for a goldsmith?
A goldsmith is not in need of Yom Tov at all. A hot bath could be in need of Yom Tov. So
isn't that a Ochel Nefesh to have a hot bath? Isn't it?
It may be called Ochel Nefesh. Ochel Nefesh doesn't mean eating. There's other types of hana that are called Ochel Nefesh. Right? Not just eating is called Ochel Nefesh.
So why couldn't you take a hot bath in Yom Tov?
Theoretically, you should be able to. But Rashi's saying the reason why our Gemora is saying it should be usher, because we're talking about heating up really hot fires for a furnace that you need to heat up a huge amount of water. That means a bathhouse. And that is usher, not just on Yom Tov, but on Shabbos. They made a gezerah to never allow people to go to the bathhouse where hot water is going to be used, even if it was heated up Erev Shabbos.
Yeah, it's your lucky because you keep 1 day. More B'nai Chutzlaretz keep 2 or 3 days.
Therefore what?
So they have it harder in a way.
They have it harder. They can't take a bath for 2 or 3 days. Well, again, maybe an individual will be allowed to, because we're not talking about using charcoal. Charcoal is to make a very, very hot fire. That's why goldsmiths use it, because they need to make a very, very hot fire. Most people heat up water very easy to cook up a few pots of boiled water with a regular fire. You don't need pechamim for that. But the Gemara said, why would you need pechamim on Yom Tov if it's not for a goldsmith? You might need it for a bathhouse attendant who really needs hot charcoals to heat up very hot fires to heat up a large amount of water. That might be a need of Yom Tov. But then the Gemara says, but that's not even true because they made a gezerah. You're not allowed to have a bathhouse operating on Yom Tov. Just like on Shabbos.
Because it brings a riot from Masechah Shabbos.
That's where we see the gezerah was instituted. Rashi's saying, our Gemora is assuming that just like there's a gezerah not to allow them to operate on Shabbos, there's a gezerah not to allow them to operate on Yom Tov. That might be because, just like in next week's Parsha, Parshas Emor, talks about all of the Yomim Tovim, and it tells us to do Sfiras HaOmer, next week's Parsha, and in there it says, when do you start counting? Do you know when you start counting?
Machos HaShabbos.
Macharos HaShabbos.
Okay.
We're not. Okay, I hope. So, what does it mean in the Torah when it says Macharos HaShabbos?
The next day.
On the day after what?
Pesach.
Pesach. But it calls it Shabbos. Because Rashi says in Chumash, because Yom Tov is also called Shabbos. It's another name for Yom Tov. Right?
Shabbos also mean a week.
Excuse me?
Shabbos can also mean a week, right?
Okay, but that's when Chazal talk. That's when Chazal want to tell you something. They can sometimes use that expression. We're not talking about Chazal's Lashon. We're talking about the Torah's Lashon. The Torah here is calling Yom Tov Shabbos. From the day after Shabbos means the day after Yom Tov. Okay?
Yes.
So we see that Shabbos and Yom Tov are synonymous. So it could be, that's what Rashi means over here, that if we see already they made a gezerah on Shabbos to forbid the bathhouse to be used, so then it applies to Yom Tov as well. It may not mean that it's usher for you, an individual, to heat up water. Talking about a bathhouse where it was very common in their day to find bathhouse attendants, since they have to heat up a huge amount of water, they may not have had time to do that Erev Shabbos or Erev Yom Tov. They might do it on Shabbos or Yom Tov. So therefore Chazal made it usher, not to give them any sayon.
Do you mind if we just have a look at that point in the Mishnah Berurah?
I don't mind. Let's see if we can find it. The first place would be in Shabbos over there, Daf Mem Amud Aleph. We have Gemora Shabbos here.
Do you mind if it's a big job we can do that.
Here's Shabbos. Here's the whole story. Because it says there were people called Ovrei Avera, people who do Averas. Misharabu Ovrei Avera. When they started to increase Ovrei Avera, he's Chilu Le'esor Ambatios Shel Krachim. Then they started to forbid bathhouses of the Krachim. Krachim, we saw in Rashi, is a big village, a big city. Mitayal Bohem, Veinachoshesh, whatever, and it says they started to heat it up on Shabbos, and they said it was done on Erev Shabbos, so therefore the Chachamim made it forbidden. Daf Mem Amud Aleph. But no, Chamim Shuchum Erev Shabbos, L'macha Rochetz Bohem Panagan of a rock loaf. So on Shabbos it says if it was heated up Erev Shabbos, the next day you can do your face, your hands, and your feet, but not the whole body. Let's just look at a few of these halachas, see if we can find anything. Daled. Shin Chavav Aleph. Maybe that's it. It's like Shin Chavav is the place to look.
So what have you just looked at?
I looked up the Gemora in Shabbos.
Yeah.
Also the page before talks about it as well. And I looked up the little letters that are by certain halachas here that tell you where to look for it in the Shulchan Aruch and the Rambam. So we want to see it in the Shulchan Aruch, which means the Mishnah Berurah. So it looks like Shin Chavav is the place to look.
Do you read Rambam Peridot?
Hmm?
Do you read Rambam Peridot?
We read it.
Yeah.
We don't learn it like Lubavitch from cover to cover, but if a person's working on a particular halacha and he wants to understand it, in most yeshivas they look up the Rambam and try to figure out how the Rambam learned the Gemora. But usually you learn the Gemora thoroughly, and then you look at the Rambam, because usually he learned the Gemora completely differently. So it's always interesting after you've learned the Gemora and you feel you understand the Gemora, then see how the Rambam learned.
We have a paskin after Rambam.
Yeah, sure. But the normal way the Shulchan Aruch paskin was to take 2 out of 3. You had the Rambam, the Rif, and the Rush. Whichever 2 out of the 3 paskin a certain way, usually the Shulchan Aruch goes that way. The Ramah tried to bring in more than just these 3, and therefore he diversified the halacha a bit. But that's the basic rule. So sometimes the Rambam will align with one of the others, and then that will become the halacha, and sometimes he's against it, and then theoretically, the halacha is not like the Rambam. Asr lirchotz kol gufa afilu kol aver ve'aver levad afilu b'mayim shehuchamu me'erev Shabbos. So the first thing the Shulchan Aruch starts with is asr to do the entire body, even if you do one limb at a time, but in the end you will have done the whole body, and even if the water was heated from erev Shabbos. So it sounds like what we're learning is more than just the bathhouse, just the individual even. Imhein b'kli Bain imhein bakark. Whether you have the water in a bathtub that's separate from the ground, or even if it's embedded in the ground, it more makes a bit of difference there. But he's saying there is no difference. Feel lishpoch mayim al gufa, even to pour the water onto you, like a shower, or to have someone pour it onto you. Ulishtata if aser. Aval mutter lirchotz behem panav yadav ragel. You can wash your hands, face, and feet. The Ramah says, or shar evarim, or even other limbs, kol she'ena rochitz kol guf. As long as you're not going to end up doing the whole body, then according to the Ramah and the Shulchan Aruch, so far it's mutter. V'hanimila b'chami ur. That's if the water is heated up with a fire. Aval b'chami taveria, there it's mutter. Whatever. Let's not get into that, because that's not...
In Tiberia, but hot springs.
Yeah, the hot springs of Tiberia, that's a bit different.
I've been those. Amazing.
Okay, let's see what the Mishnah Berurah says on that one. He says it's a gezerah that you might come to heat up water on Shabbos, which is that is what Rashi really said. It's just we weren't sure if it's just the bathhouse or even the individual. Sounds like you're even an individual. There's a gezerah on. And when it says you shouldn't do your whole body, the Mishnah Berurah says even if you're just going to do the majority of your body, then it's asur.
So that sounds like it applies to our mikvahs today. It was much
Sloshkeim rochets kederach rechitza kol gufa biyachad. Okay, just 1 second. Feel lishpoch, and feel mayim shulchamu. Feel him bekarka b'hem chamim shulchamu me'erev Shabbos. Shabbos asur feel yadav. If it was heated up on Shabbos, then it's even asur just your hands. Shari vardim. Isha shaloveshes lovanim b'Shabbos v'yom tov muteres lirchotz b'mekomos. Right, she's allowed to wash certain things, I guess, to prepare for the mikvah on Motzi Shabbos. I think a woman's allowed to go to the mikvah on Shabbos, even if it's heated up. But it doesn't say it here exactly.
Well, many who go to mikvah are not allowed to go to mikvah on Shabbos.
That's what Shabbatai is worried about here, that it does sound like it's a problem if it's hot water. He says, in a place where they're noeg to heat up the mikvah, here's a real, if you want to see it, it's maybe easier. Anyways, we said it's Shin Chavav, right, which means 326. That's the Siman number. In there, we're still in Sif Aleph, the very first halakha in the Shulchan Aruch, but in the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Kat and Zayin, if you want to look it up, which should be easy to remember because Sif Kat and Zayin means the day, like the 7th day. So he starts talking about in places where there's no need to heat up the mikvah, you need to be careful not shaloye rak postring, that they should only be lukewarm water. The imlokain asur litvobah. If not, it's asur. And that's the Mishnah Berurah in the name of the Chayadam. Ayin bekorban nisanol, perik b'men madlikin. So you can look up the korban nisanol. And he gives you where to look up the Korban Nesanel if you should want to. But it looks to me like it's black on white. It doesn't look like there's any room to move here. But again, maybe Hasidim have their own post-game. I don't know. I think they go by the Mishnah Berurah for the most part. So theoretically, they shouldn't argue. But I can imagine if you find people doing it, that there's some post-game who are matir. But as far as Mishnah Berurah is concerned, I don't see any room to move that. Although he does quote a Korban Nesanel. You know what the Korban Nesanel is, right? It's a perush on the rush. You know, the rush at the end of the Masechta.
Yeah.
Underneath there's the Korban Nesanel, which means an Acharon who explains the rush, what he's talking about, much just like Rashi explains the Gemora. But he also may add his own different psukim. He was a big Rav in Europe. He's considered like a posek, so maybe he's quoting him. Maybe there's some Korban Nesanel that talks about it in a more lenient way. But according to the Mishnah Berurah, I don't see any room to move over there. In any event, at least you have what to look up. Okay, so let's go further in the Gemora. So we said, let's just recount our steps over here. The Mishnah says it's usher to make these charcoal pieces on Yom Tov. Rashi says the pshat in the Mishnah that it's usher because of what? You end up making a kli.
Yes.
What the kli is something that the people who purify gold use to heat up very hot fires. And the Gemora says, of course that's usher. Pshita. It's not a tzorech of Yom Tov. Gemora says, no, maybe I want to make the pachamim for another use, just to give to the bathhouse people who need to heat up very large quantities of water to high levels of heat. They need pachamim. And that would be a tzorech Yom Tov. So maybe it would be mutter, as far as tzorech Yom Tov is concerned. And that the Mishnah had to come tell me, no, you can't, because it's called making a kli. On that the Gemora says, but that's also pashut. That's also pshita. Why? Because there are no bathhouses. It's also to wash in hot water on Yom Tov. Because of the gezerah that's in Shabbos. That's how the Gemara is learning that it's synonymous. If it made a gezerah on Shabbos, the gezerah applies to Yom Tov as well. That's how Rashi learns. And then you have the question of the Gemara that did talk about heating up water for Machlokas Beishai Beisil, whether you're allowed to heat up water for your washing on Yom Tov, but whatever. That's a pshat in the Gemara according to Rashi. That how can you even think of giving it to the bathhouse people? It's also to go to the bathhouse on Yom Tov because of the gezerah and the Gemora and Shabbos. So again, we're back to square one. It's pshita that you can't make pachamim, because what are you making it for? Bathhouse attendants? There are no bathhouse attendants. So the Gemora says,
Okay, I should continue.
Kida Amar
Kida Amar
Rava
said.
It must be like Rava said in a case over there in Brachos. So some case in Brachos where he said this, that what?
Lahazia.
They're doing it not to wash, but to sweat, like a sauna bath. Right, a sauna. A sauna, you go into a room that's very hot to sweat. You ever gone into a sauna? They used to have one in Neve Ilan. You know Neve Ilan?
Yes, they have a swimming pool.
They used to have a swimming pool, but next to the swimming pool they had a sauna. So I finally got to see what a sauna is. It's this very, very hot room. You sit on these benches and you sweat. I personally don't like it, but they consider it very healthy to sweat, etc. That's what the Gemora is saying. Maybe they're going to do it to give to someone like a bathhouse attendant, a sauna attendant, who also has to heat it up very high level and might need charcoal for that. So that would be a tzorech Yom Tov, so that might make it permissible. And it's not included in the gezerah, apparently. And therefore, I would think it's mutter. Kamash on the Mishnah, no, because it's called making a kli. Okay?
Kadam Gezerah.
And you have to say it's before the gezerah. Now, we were already talking about a gezerah. Apparently, there are two gezerahs. One against bathhouse attendants, that they were messing around, so we had to shut that down. And apparently, it also happened in the sauna business, that they also started messing around, so we had to make a new gezerah. So yeah, but that was a later gezerah. So we can postulate that our Mishnah is talking at a time before the new gezerah against sauna.
Yes.
So then the Mishnah would have to say, I know you want to make these charcoal to give it to the sauna attendant to go and sweat it out, which is mutter, which is like a tzorach
Sweat it
yom
out.
sweat it out, right? But no, you can't because it's called making a kli. But that's only, you have to postulate, you're talking before the gezerah and hachanami. So here also, just like Rava used that teretz to answer up something in brachos, you could say also here that it was for the sake of what? Lahazia, and it has to be before the gezerah. Okay, let's see Rashi. Lahazia.
Lahazia. Machnis hapchamim l'sachoi, to put the chocolates inside.
Inside of it, probably the room where you want to sweat.
People come and sweat it
Sweat.
out.
Right? In other words, you make a room very, very hot. And then I think they actually had that. In the side of the room, they had this little kind of trench where the hot coals and the hot rocks were. I think people pour water on those hot rocks and it makes it into like steam. Okay, and Rashi says, and it has to be talking what?
HaKodesh shegazu al hazia.
That's when what Nishnas,
They taught.
it was taught passively. It was taught Mishnah Zu, this Mishnah. So our Mishnah is telling you what? You cannot on Yom Tov what? Make pechamim, because that's called making a kli. Why would you want to do it? You'd want to do it to give to the people who run the sauna bath, the sauna rooms, to go and sweat. They need these hot pechamim to heat things up to a high level. And that's what the Mishnah is saying. I know you'd want to do that, and that would have been mutter because it's a tzorach Yom Tov, and it's before the gezerah, and therefore he had to tell you no, because that's called making a kli. But the truth of the matter is, later there was a gezerah, and anyways it would be usher, just like it's usher to give it to a bathhouse attendant, because you're not allowed to open a bathhouse on Yom Tov or Shabbos. So to later it became usher to open up a sauna room. So even that would be usher in the end of the day after the gezerah. But this Mishnah is talking about when, exactly in that little window, after they made a gezerah on the bathhouses, but before they made a gezerah on the saunas. So that's what it needed to tell you. Don't do it, because it's called making a kli. Shabbatai, you're very quiet today.
Yeah, I'm just a little puzzled by it. They make charcoal, it's also to make charcoal. It's considered a kli. But it seems to be dependent on what you do with it.
No, there's two things.
Yeah.
Don't do it because it's a kli, but then the Gemora said, of course, pshita, that you can't do that, because even without it being, even if you wouldn't call it a kli, it still would be usher.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
But that's what the Gemora asked.
So why would they even...
That's what the Gemora asked.
Yeah.
But it answered. It answered that. It answered that. I still had to tell you,
Because you may make...
because you can maybe find a tzorach Yom Tov.
Alright, you cannot make it because of people that refine gold, but maybe you can make it for hot water. No, you can't do that either. Maybe you can make for sweating, no, you can't do that either.
Yeah, but why can't you do that?
Because of the gezerah.
No, this Mishnah taught before that gezerah.
Oh.
So that's the point. Before there was a gezerah forbidding the sweat houses, the saunas.
You could do.
You could have theoretically made it for the sake of those saunas,
Right.
but that Mishnah, the Mishnah had to therefore come tell you, you're not allowed because it's called making a kli.
Ah, so we're back to the initial statement.
We have to justify our Mishnah. Our Mishnah has a pshat. Rashi said the pshat already. It's also because of making it a kli. And even without Rashi, we should have figured it out for ourselves, because the three halachas in this Mishnah all have to do with making a kli.
So, but before the gezerah, you could do
Before the gezerah of what? Which gezerah?
the sweating.
Before that, you could have theoretically thought it was mutter
Yeah, but
to
still-
give it to these guys who run the sauna baths.
Yeah.
But this Mishnah is telling you can't, because it's called making a kli.
So why the gezerah then?
They had a gezerah because people were actually heating up, just like we had the gezerah of heating, and people were heating up water on Shabbos and saying they had done it Erev Shabbos for the bathhouse. There are people who heated up their saunas on Shabbos, and made it look as if they had, and told people they had done it on Erev Shabbos. I assume it's the same kind of gezerah. We have people who were doing an avera. The Chazal therefore had to forbid the whole thing. They basically, like today, you have the Environmental Protection Agency shutting down a whole industry because people are doing shenanigans.
Right, so right from the beginning, sweating was a problem.
Sweating was a problem.
I mean, right from the beginning, making hot coals to allow people to sweat was already an issue.
Beginning meaning before they made a gezerah?
Yeah, according to our Mishnah.
Because of a small problem called making a kli.
Right.
Okay.